Today we're going to show you how to change the front drum bearing on your dryer. It's a really easy job. All we're going to need is a Phillips screwdriver, maybe a pair of needle nose pliers. Let me show you how it's done. Now the first step in this repair should be to disconnect the power to the appliance. If your dryer has a cord on it, simply remove it from the receptacle. If it's hardwired, find a breaker and turn it off. Now the next step in this repair will be to remove the main top so that we have access to the screws holding the front panel on. There are two screws that hold the top in place. They're located here and here. So we're simply going to remove those. With the two screws removed, we'll lift up on the front of the top panel and kind of tilt it so that it disengages from the control panel. And we can set that aside. Now, there are two screws that hold the front panel in place. They're located in each top corner. Simply remove those. Hold the front panel in place as you remove the last screw. And we'll tilt the front panel forward. The drum will drop off of the drum glide. And in the lower left corner there will be some wires that connect to the door switch. So we need to remove several of those before we can remove the front panel. Take note of the color codes of the wires and where they're located. And you may need a pair of needle nose pliers to remove the terminals. Once we've removed those wires, we can lift the front panel off of the base, and that'll give us access to change the drum bearing. Now that we have the front panel removed, we've just leaned it up against the dryer because it's a convenient spot to work on it. We're going to replace this top bearing housing. Now, since we have it apart, it's a good chance to look at the actual drum glides. Check all four of them and make sure there's lots of surface left on those. If they need to be replaced, or if the felt that runs in the lower half of the drum bearing is torn or is missing pieces, you may want to get those parts before you complete your repair. Now to remove it, if your dryer has a light in it, we'll want to remove that bulb first. And it just simply snaps in place. These two tabs at the top engage a little hook on the front panel. Just disconnect those. There's a wire harness that runs up to our lamp on this one. We'll need to move that out of the way. Just tilt the bearing forward and lift it out of its slot. There are two hooks on either end that engage the lower half. If your drum has a light in it, we'll want to knock this little plastic tab out. Discard that. And we'll engage the two hooks on either end. Tilt it back into place, making sure we don't pinch that wire harness. Make sure the light socket lines up. And the channel that runs all the way around the inside perimeter has to fold over the metal protrusion on the front panel. Now that that's in place, we can take the old drum glides and remove those. Just simply slide them out. There's a hole in one end of them that will hook on a short tab on the drum bearing. So we'll hook those on first and then slide the other end in place. There are two clear ones on the lower portion and two darker ones on the top. Now, before we reinstall the front panel, you may want to clean any accumulated lint that is down in the lint opening. And as well, the wire harness that comes from the dryer that is going to connect to the door switch has to tuck up underneath this plastic retainer. So I'll make sure there's room for that to happen. And you may also want to crimp the ends of those female terminals so that they fit snugly when you reinstall them. The last thing we need to do is reinstall the light bulb. It should turn in 3 to 4 full turns to make sure that it's not cross-threaded. And now we're ready to reinstall. Now we're ready to reinstall the front panel. We'll locate the square holes in the bottom of the front panel with the tabs that protrude from the base frame and line that up. Next, we'll reconnect the wires to the door switch. Make sure all the electrical connections are secure. We'll tilt the front panel into place. And we'll have to lift up on the drum a bit to set it on top of the bearing. And there's a couple of tabs on the top of the front panel that line up with a slot in the cabinet. Hold the front panel in place. And reinstall the 2 screws. Now we're ready to put the main top in place. We want to locate those 3 slots with the 3 tabs on the control panel. The control panel is firmly engaged with the top. And now we can reinstall the 2 long screws up through the front panel into the main top. Make sure they're nice and tight. And our repair is complete.